All right, folks, welcome back to the show. Got my man Rashad Staten, who is an entrepreneur, nonprofit leader, and community activist. Rashad, good to see you, brother. How are you, sir?
Hey, peace and blessings, brother. Always wonderful, man. Happy for the culture. Happy thriving Thursday.
Happy Thriving Thursday. All right, Rashad, I wanted
Yo.
to have a discussion with you about something that Taraji P. Henson had alluded to. And we're asking the big question. And, folks, some of you might be already pondering this, but I think this is a good question. Is moving out of the U.S. the best option for Black people? Here's what Taraji P. Henson put out. Look at her face. I like the picture they have of it. She says she's moving out the U.S., but Ariel, let's post her comment, her quote. She said, "I'm really considering getting up out of here, leaving and living in another country. That's something that comes with 50. You get tired of fighting. I'm tired. There's something that happens when you turn 50 where all of your fucks are behind you. I've accomplished a lot, and I'm going to do what I want to do." She said, "I'm at the point now where if I say I quit and I'm going to go travel the world, I can. It's so freeing." Where's your passport, Rashad? You got a passport already?
I got my passport. I check it every 2 weeks to make sure it ain't expired.
No, but real talk, bro. Like, can we talk about the fact? Now, look, I've heard, and some of you, I've heard so many people, Black people. I remember when Trump first got in office, was running for president. People was like, if this dude gets in, I'm leaving the country. Remember that, Rashad? Everybody was talking about they about to run up north to Canada. Canada's like, don't you bring that madness up here. Canada's like, no. But I heard a lot of people say that. So Trump got elected. He got out of office. Some folks are still here. But now, like, Taraji is putting it out there like, look, man, I'm 50. Like, how much fighting do you supposed to do in your life? What's your take on that, bro? Because I'm going to be honest. I got mixed feelings about it. But what's your take on it?
You know what? I had to I felt that in my spirit. Like Country Wayne said, you got to let that sizzle in your spirit. Like, I felt where his sister was coming from, right? And I don't know where I'm at in my life that I might feel that way, but I think she has the means. I think she's at that age of living and have a lived experience in that space of just wanting to be free, right? And I'm sure that she can experience that here, but it will require some level of disconnect. But maybe she just wants something new, and if that's the case, why not do it? But my only reluctance and hesitation towards that whole comment is there any place in this world that's much safer for us to be people, right? We think about what happened in the Ukraine and things of that sort. As African people of the diaspora, we see they were the ones that were stopped from even leaving that country, right? We think about our brothers and the sisters that are in the UK, and we learn of them in Great Britain and other works, and they talk about their lived experiences almost just as similar to ours, right? So it's like, in what place do we have a safe haven, right? Where's that haven at? And then the other part is like, I want to ask her more. I want to learn more. Like, I'm wondering, where is she considering? Is she considering the continent? Is she considering where we are as a people, right? So that's my place. Like, I can't disagree with her. I'm not opposing to it, because I think everybody should have that level of accessibility to just up and go, right? But I would love for her to experience that back on our homeland, right?
And see, here's the other thing, and that's why I said I have mixed feelings about it. Like, part of me feel like this is our home. You know what I'm saying? Like, we talked about this on the show, Rashad. I'm not renting. I own this joint. Right? We're not leasing, and to give it back, we own this joint. Right? So you know what I mean? Like just as much as we claim Africa, I think we should claim America, because we built this joint. Our blood, sweat, and tears, right? So this could be an extension, for lack of a better word. This could be the winter home. and then we got the main home. But the point is, we own this property.
I agree. I say, brother. I agree. Go back to like what you said with the Juneteenth. It's like the intentionality of using those colors. Like, don't erase us out of this history of this country because we built this country.
And see, look, what Taraji was kind of speaking to, which is I understand because you get to that place, right? I think we all get to that place. If you are a conscious individual in this day and time, and I think a lot of Black people are, I don't think it's easy for us to assume that Black people don't know what's going on. But I think a lot more Black people do know what's going on versus the numbers that don't, right? So if you are in this space, you do get tired. Look, man, you and I personally, we do community work. I've been doing community work for over 20 years.
Yes, sir.
There are moments where I'm like, man, I'm ready to quit. I've heard some of the best and brightest. I've heard everyone from Dr. Conrad Rowell to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan to every Black leader has expressed the toll, the exhaustion of fighting for freedom, justice, and equality and liberation for Black people. Every Black leader, Dr. Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, just go through their writings. They got tired. So I don't want anybody to believe that no one gets tired. But for somewhere in each one of those great, not just men, but in the number of the heroes, they found something. They dug deep within themselves to figure out we got to keep fighting. Because here's why. I believe that one, they saw that this is our place, like America is ours. But then I know that number two, what do you leave for the next generation? What future in this country? Because all the 13% that of Black people that make up this country, everybody can't move to Africa, bro.
Yo, you hit it. When you said that, you know, it hit me. It was that see it through poem. Like, running from it will not save you. It will probably chase you around the rest of this globe.
Check this out. You hit it. You hit it when you said what, and you asked, and I think that's a legitimate question. What place on the planet is Black people not catching hell? I'll wait.
The government say we need research on this.
I mean, seriously,
international research.
What inhabitable place on the planet is Black people not catching hell? See, we running from our destiny. In the hell, and Rashad, trust me when I tell you this, because I'm learning so much about the divine in all of this, right? Because a lot of people don't seem to think that our struggle is actually a divine struggle. But the reality is, in the hell is our heaven.
Talk.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I think J. Cole coined the phrase beautiful struggle, if I'm not mistaken. I think he was the one that said that. Talk about the beauty in the struggle.
Yeah, yep.
There is something to that. Like, we are struggling, but there's beauty in the struggle, because when you are being forged, I'm about to hit people with this, y'all. Y'all ready for this? When you are forged in the furnace of affliction, that's what the scriptures say, right? You are in the furnace of affliction. See, this is a different path. Every people have their own path. White people, Latino people, Asian people, every people have their own path to get to an ultimate destination. And Black people, we trying to compare our story, our narrative, our path to somebody else's path. We got to stop doing that. We are on a very special path in this country.
Agree, 100%.
Go ahead, bro. Cause come on, man.
No, I'm just curious. I like this whole idea. Like it makes me, and I'm reading the comments, is making me gauge this idea of, is there really research into this? I know some are actually identifying their safe havens and their spaces where they go for solitude, for balance, for restoration. We talked about it in plenty of times in the show of those that are in the Appalachians, the Black Appalachians. Like, can we go there without leaving this country, right? Can we go back to certain places and just disconnect in a space where we're not being subjugated in an influx of seeing all of this world, right? Because consciousness will bring you into rage, like we all know that to be true. But I'm curious to it, like you said, where in one place can we pinpoint tranquility, peace, and balance for us to show up in our wholeness
and justice?
And justice.
Wait, tell me, outside of the fake Wakanda.
Because I've got friends that studies international law, international politics, and are humanitarians, and they go across the world. They even go back to the continent, and some of our realities over there is not beautiful, right? So I'm thinking, and then we know when you talk about we go to other places of European countries. Man, I can only assume that we're still being subjugated, we're still being oppressed, we're still being suppressed. So I think that plays a lot of part, but it's definitely it's a great thinking point. But I think we all need a place to escape at times, though. So I feel
I get that. No. Trust and believe, and I think that even in Taraji's comments, she's talking about two different places. Because when I was reading it, I said, okay, she said, I want to move to a place and then vacation. Want to go on a vacation.
Yeah, I caught the same thing.
That's two different situations.
The summer house,
take a little break and then just travel the world. That's one thing. But to move to a place, that's a whole different state of being, right?
Agreed.
And like, again, not to say that if you go to the motherland, you go down to the islands, that you won't get some level of peace. But it's a different struggle for Black people. The struggle is still for our humanity. The struggle is still for justice and equality, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, you can go down to Jamaica and be like, man, Jamaica is beautiful.
Beautiful.
I'm sure who goes to Jamaica all the time, he said, man, it's beautiful.
Same.
But Black people are in you know, they're not all living up in palaces down in Kingston.
Right, because then we come with our American privilege to experience it in a different light than the natives there, right? So that's how I felt. Like, I felt, you know, that space of privilege. That's it. It's not until I traveled out of the country that I understood and experienced my privilege as an American.
And then, I mean, look,
and
that's because of the place we're from,
right?
Now, look, Janine, I see you. I ain't paying Janine no attention because she's going to yell out Antarctica. Who is living in Antarctica, sis?
People that live in Antarctica.
For real. Nobody is packing up and be like, man, hey, at least the bears ain't biased.
They don't see color.
At least the penguins. At least the penguins ain't.
We needed that one.
Nobody's moving to Antarctica, sis. Stop it. But I mean, seriously, you go to Europe, you're going to experience some level of hell. Hell, even if we go to the Middle East, the Arab nations still think that they're better than Black people. And
there's a distinction. Yep. That's their own culture.
Very few. And I'm saying you might have pockets, right? Like, for example, when in Libya, in other areas, you might have pockets where they're progressive enough to understand the value of Black life. But the reality is, what are we running away from? Because see, here's the place that I'm in right now, Rashad. You might be in the same place, and some of you watching might be in the same place. I'm tired of running from it. I'm trying to get to a place. I want us to get to a place where we confront all of this BS head on, so that we don't give it and pass it on to our babies that's coming behind us. Like, I got my 2-year-old daughter, Rashad. You got you don't need for them to go through it because mommy and daddy just got tired.
Mm-hmm.
I was always taught you die on your post.
Mm-hmm.
You don't stop fighting, you die fighting.
I'll be damned if my son inherited the pain that I had to go through.
That's not fair.
Mm-hmm.
That's not fair. I'm the same way. My son and my daughter, I don't want them to, well, what did you do, daddy? Well, daddy left the fight. Why did you leave the fight, dad? Because daddy was tired. Well, dad, maybe you should have got your weight up. Maybe you got some exercise and kept going.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the other part. Here's the other part. As blessed as I have been to be around some of the most prolific Black leaders, to be living in this very, very great time that we're living in, right? Part of me, and Rashad, you might be feeling the same way, bro. Part of me feels a little like if I were to just go to a beach, run to a beach, or run to a place where I don't want to experience no pain, there's a level of betrayal.
Mm-hmm.
There's a level of betrayal that I start to feel on those who, how can I run away from the pain when you think about Harriet Tubman,
Mm-hmm.
Sojourner Truth,
they had no option but to fight. No
and
option.
these were older women who had more balls and testicular fortitude than grown young men.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be able to live with it myself. Like, there's one thing to go on that vacation. You can, like, when you go on vacation, you have experiences, bro. Like, you go into a beach, say if you got a 4-day vacation or 5-day vacation. For the first 2 days, you love. It's all love. It's like, whoa, I'm glad I'm here. First 2 days. Then on the third day, you're like, all right, this is cool. You're spending money. You're always in this paradise, this tropical place. And you're like, all right. The fourth day, you like,
this can't be it. This can't be it.
Like, yo, is this like I ain't by 4.5 days in, you like, yo, I'm ready to go home, yo. I'm ready to
you start checking your phone, you start connecting back a little bit.
like this is life, and I think that's the other thing of life. Life is supposed to have ups and downs, it's supposed to have the joys and pains. Life is composed of struggle. So, you can't just always have ease because it's unnatural. That's how I've been taught.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to some of the comments. Ariel, let's bring them up. All right. Chris V checked in. We got a lot of people that checked in, man.
Yeah, they loving this one here, man. I think this one had to be another part 2 to this conversation.
It's gonna have to be another part 2. Wait a minute, hold on. Somebody, I know, Mike. I hope Mike V. I want you to clarify a comment for me, brother, because Mike said Faraji equal Killmonger from Black Panther. Killmonger is not an admirable character in Black Panther. I want y'all to stop that foolishness. Killmonger, if I die, Killmonger was killing his people. He was going to rob Wakanda of its resources. Let's not get it twisted. Killmonger is not an admirable character in Black Panther. And I think many of us get that. We think like, no, he was a soldier. Killmonger was beating on the women. He was going to rob them of that of the resources, and he had no respect for authority.
Mm-hmm. He was the Americanized hero.
He was
he was the American.
Bro.
That's what the duality. I think that's why we can correlate it too, because it's some of our self-conscious self. So it's like, yo, I really thought this way before. We know a Killmonger, right? So it made us relatable, but it doesn't mean that it's admirable.
Right, because he cloaked it. He cloaked his hatred for himself in this language, like, if I, I'm saying, I'm for the people. No, you're for yourself. You are a cancer. Look at y'all. Go back to Black Panther. Killmonger was not. He was not a good character.
Break it down that way, though, Faraji. You're the first one I've heard break it down in that context.
He's not a good character. That's why he was the villain. People were like, man, he's more of a man than Black Panther. He hated Black people. But the point that he made is that he was made to hate himself because he was in the military. Y'all remember his story. He was in the military and he was conditioned to be a soldier. And he stopped somewhere along the line. He started to hate his own people. That's what made him dangerous. They made him king and all of that stuff, but he had no respect for the kingdom. He didn't want to abide by any rules. He is not an admirable character. All right, let's go to this. Chris said, I literally just mailed to get my passport renewed the other day. My man, Chris. I love it. Love it. Thank you,
I'm
Chris.
getting up right now. When we get off, I'm going to check my date. That right there. Sometimes you got to let the universe remind you, man. Because I'm going to Sierra.
You go. There you go. Lenora, good to hear from you, sis. I thought about it too, but where would I go? My brother has said this is still the best country in the world, regardless how messed up things are.
Perspective.
You got to look at the pros and cons of where we are. You got to look at the pros and cons of where we are. I'm not saying that America, we know America ain't the best and isn't the greatest, but you got to look at the pros and cons of where we are. And some of us, we might talk, Rashad, some of us talk that like, man, I leave this country. As soon as you go over there for a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks and you do your thing in your American way.
Your privilege going to show. Your privilege going to show. You're going to want to come back a little bit straight. Like you said, the first 3 days are going to be beautiful. Because you're forced to adapt to something that you're not accustomed to.
Right, there it is. So, Lenora, I hear you loud and clear. Thank you for checking in. All right, Mike said, I came to the conclusion I need to stop chasing the American dream and be a part of the African future. You could do that from here, Mike. You could do that from here. Just a thought, brother. Just a thought. Nisa, 1971, checked in and says, look, mine expired, her passport. I need to renew it. I think eventually too many black people will not be allowed to leave this country permanently. They need us for war.
That could be a sad truth.
It could be a very sad truth, Nisa. Thank you so much, sis, for checking in. Janae, you said, and she can afford to do that, and she would have better accommodations than the average folk. But the idea is growing, especially if we can move amongst our people, make it a group thing. Do go it alone.
Thanks.
Well, I mean, Taraji can do that because she's got the resources, she got the time, she got all of that. But the reality is, like, again, what are we trying to run from? Or what are we running from, and where are we running to?
Yeah, like you said, Roger, even in that reading of that article, you can see her dealing with that duality. Like, I have the means to do it, but then I'm still tired.
She's still tired. She want to take a vacation. What she wants is a vacation. If she's talking about leaving the country, then suppose she leaves the country and she's not seen in the same light as we see her in America. You know what I'm saying?
Yep, I agree.
Would that change? Danita checked in and said, that's what I'm talking about. Is there any place for us? People of our hue aren't safe anywhere. There is oppression of our people everywhere. I would like dual citizenship. I agree. I think that we should get dual citizenship. I think when we go to the motherland, look, I know a couple of family members used to live in Ghana. You know what I mean? Ghana. Like I said, Libya, if you want to talk about places. But again, the fact is, we would still have to deal with, that works for us individually, but what about the collective? We got to stop thinking about the individual, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like
that's it.
Like, yeah, it might be good for you or your family or, a couple other families, but the collective.
How many people we leave behind to experience what we're trying to escape?
Right. DeAndre checked in and said, with that being said, Taraji has points with her frustration. There's a ton of research to be made, though, especially when we are talking about moving internationally. Absolutely. King Saul, thank you so much, DeAndre. King Saul, good to hear from you, bro. The American dream was attained for one group and a dream for us. Yeah, I agree with that. But you know what, though? I told y'all what kind of energy I'm on right now. The energy is that you create your own future, man. That's the energy on. Black people always, regardless, we already know that we can take some shit. We already know that we're resilient. What's stopping us from creating our own future? Right? Regardless of where you are, you don't need to go to Africa. What's stopping us from? And I'm talking about seriously, folks. I know you might say, "Oh, Faraji, what about the laws? Faraji, what about the attitudes of racism? What about this? What about that?" I'm saying seriously, why can't you make a heaven for yourself right here on earth, wherever you are? Individually, we do it every day. We talk about the people who do it every day. We idolize the people who do it every day.
Every day.
Collectively, we can't do it every day. You create your own future, right, Zoe? Zoe, I see you. I got you. Zoe checked in and also said Taraji is in a place of power and privilege that most black families are not afforded. Immigrants fight to get here for a reason. The grass is always green on the other side. Yeah, before you make a move internationally, maybe you should visit them for a vacation real quick. And just see how the culture is, see how the people are, see how the whole situation is. Yep. Chris V said, if Wakanda was real, it would be partly gentrified by now. Chris, go home, man. Stop, man. Turn off your device, man. Chris, turn off your device, sir.
You gotta give it 20 years, and then we can see it be gentrified. This is so serious. That is so serious.
Turn off your device, Chris. Let me see here. Who else we got in here? Sonia Jenkins. Sonia, thank you so much for checking in. How can we claim America as ours when it was stolen from the indigenous people? We were kidnapped, for a lack of a better word, and brought here. That's true. But guess what? Didn't we give our blood, sweat, and tears to this country to build this country?
Along with the indigenous folks.
And along with the indigenous folks.
Most people got to study. We are some of those same indigenous folk. All of us ain't come over on no ship. There
are black Indians.
We do exist amongst the indigenous.
I'm serious.
And they will tell you, like, if you go and speak to some indigenous, y'all know some of us are us, right? Man.
Right. Davey checked in. Faraji thinks he's too American to be a refugee. Climate and the decline of America might uproot a whole lot of people who don't want to move. I'm not too American to be a refugee. Look, man, look. It ain't about that, Davey. It's just simply about I'm tired of running. We're gonna confront this shit right now. We're going to deal with it. I'm just tired of running. I'm tired of it, bro. If we're tired, then let's get tired and exterminating and uprooting racism and sexism and all those other isms. And I'm just tired of that. I'm more tired of that. Yeah, you're damn right. And I mean, again, I've said this before, folks, but I'll say it again, Davey. If you look at America, there are very few places that are geographically as diverse as America. Where you can go from one end of the country, mountains, and to the other end, valleys. And I mean, this is a beautiful country. I'm saying geographically. This is one of the most beautiful places that you can find in the world that has all of these different climates, different levels of topography, everything. And I'm just tired of running. I don't want to pass this on to another generation if I can help it. That's the space that I'm in. I don't want to pass this on to my children.
Shit, bro.
You know what I'm saying? So I would like, you know what? I'm like you, Rashad. I would love to have a conversation with Taraji and be like, hey, Taraji, what place do you have in mind that you're thinking about leaving or going to?
I'm curious.
I'm personally curious too, bro. I'm personally curious too. You know what I'm saying? And here's the other thing. Janine, you talk about it. The reality is Black folks are global people. We are global international people. It's not based on, If you look at the history of Black people across the globe, we set up wherever we are, it don't matter.
Mm-hmm.
You got Black people in Europe, Black people in Middle East. You got Black people in the islands. You got Black people in Australia. You know what I'm saying? We are international people. We don't have to go to a place. No. Mm-mm. Nope. Nope. Mm-mm. We can visit. That's my view. We can certainly visit. But nah, bro. This is my home. When people ask me, are you an American? Rashad, what do you say?
Yes. I don't know where that. I don't know how else.
I don't be like, man, I'm from nowhere. I'm from the darkness. I am all that I am.
Sure, my lineage connects me to elsewhere, but for my lived knowledge and lived experience, I'm American. I'm sorry, I don't know nothing else.
I'm from Baltimore. I'm American, bro.
I would say I'm Baltimore first, but I'm American.
They might get scared of
That's
you.
just a Baltimore mentality.
They be in
we
Africa.
in the whole world.
You listening to The Wire. You be like, no.
And I've had plenty of folks come up to me randomly and say, "You're African. You look African." They say your demeanor, there's my facial structures, and I'm like, I'm sure it is, but sorry, out of my own understanding, my ignorance, I don't know. Enlighten me.
No, because I was born in America. Now I could do ancestry, but at the end of the day, I was born in America. That's what it is. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what it is. Again, our people were here. Our people born here, died here, gave their lives for this. Why would I deny that part of my history and my culture?
Mm-hmm.
All right. My man Rashad, always good. You always bring these very
I think I'm noticing that too. It's like the igniting of the fire. But I think one, like in the closing, Faradi is like one. I think your understanding of your history, that even the dark parts of our history you're not shameful of.
No.
Right. So even with that, you can stake claim in it. So it's like, yeah, I can claim me being American because one, I'm not shameful of even the dark parts because it still made me who I am. But I'm knowledgeable enough to not be a fool to how it has not always treated me and my people fairly either.
Right.
I'm not an ignorant, prideful American.
Right. Right. I mean, I think you're absolutely correct. I think there's a little bit of identity crisis when you start to get into all of the other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like the reality is let's start there. I was born in America.
I am too American.
You know what I'm saying? But that doesn't necessarily mean that I think a certain way.
Right.
You know what I mean? But yeah, this is it. There is something about the children of former slaves coming up in this place that they were made enslaved and becoming masters. That's a very compelling story. And I think that we shouldn't run from that part of our narrative.
Mm-hmm.
Brother Roland got a great piece called The Year of Our Return, 1619 to 2019. I mean, we were put in this part of the earth for those, and there are others, our ancestors who were on that part of the earth, but we got to make the connection.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what? We can't be ashamed. I love how you say that, bro. We just can't be ashamed of our story, man. This is our story, folks. Again, every people has their own path.
Verizon just gave us all a brand new iPhone 13.
We've been customers for years.
We got iPhone 13s too. Switched 2 minutes ago, literally right before this.
iPhone 13 on us on any unlimited plan for every customer, with plans starting at just $35. All on the network more people rely on.
Love our new Alexa.
It's a Buick.
Yeah, Alexa,
Buick.
Alexa.
It's a Buick.
It's an Alexa. It's a Buick. It's an Alexa. Coach, that's a Buick. That's an Alexa.
The Buick Enclave with available Alexa built-in.
Pull up a chair. Take your seat. The Black Tape. With me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
So as you may have known, that on the 24th of June, Roe versus Wade was repealed by the Supreme Court. And we are hearing different things coming out about how people really feel. Now, Trump went on a rally the other day taking credit for, one, putting 3 Supreme Court justices on the Supreme Court, therefore leading to the overture of the Roe versus Wade. Now, he did have Representative Mary Miller, who is a representative in Illinois, who said that Roe versus Wade, the repeal of it, is a victory for white life, which is a little jarring for most of us people in the country who aren't white. And it sounded a little bit off coming from an actual sitting representative. And today we're going to talk about that. And I have my friend, Mr. Royce, the voice, Royce Massengale. He is the host of Royce's Rant, who will be with us today, who will be discussing all of these topics and more. I want to bring Royce into this conversation to talk about exactly what's going on with Roe versus Wade. And is this really a victory for white life?
How you doing?
Hey, Royce, how are you? Welcome
you
to the culture. I'm doing well. So I wanted to talk to you. As you know, that we have had Roe versus Wade to protect us for nearly 50 years.
Right.
And because of the overture of Roe versus Wade, we're seeing states that as of June 24th, it is illegal to get an abortion. Is this a dog whistle for white women and white men trying to control their bodies?
Okay, so here we go. All right, so first I do want to address the media slip up or the accident on purpose or the on purpose on accident, statement that she made about white life. I'm trying my best not to look into that particular thing too deep because I've made mistakes when I'm reading from the paper because that wasn't coming from the head. She constantly was looking down at her script here, and sometimes you might get confused, white with life. But I don't think that's the real issue here. You know what I'm saying? Because when you think about it, when it comes to this Roe v. Wade, and we're talking about, these abortions and making them illegal, there's a high percentage, of black women that are getting these abortions at a higher percentage. And most of them are not for medical reasons or for, any other lower percentage situations. A lot of these reasons that these women are getting these abortions, roughly close to 60%, is really just because, to me, I'm gonna add my opinion into it, irresponsible decisions when it comes to sex. I mean, just keeping it real, you're having sex, you're getting intimate, the consequences of sex. There's 2 things. You can get STDs or you can get pregnant. Anything else could happen. But a lot of people seem to leave out the irresponsible behavior due to pregnancy, and they say I wasn't ready for it, it was unplanned, so I'm just going to kill the baby. Like, that's not fair to me. So to be honest, yeah, go ahead.
Let me ask you this.
All right.
So just going back to the question, is this a victory? So the way that you're talking, you believe that this is in fact a victory for white life?
No, I don't think it's a victory for white life. I mean, it's a victory for black life too, because the black lives are killing the babies just as much.
So you are definitely pro-life, is what you're saying.
I'm pro-life. But see, at the same time, I'm pro-choice too, because God gave us free will before any law of the land. You know, so you have the right to do anything you want to, but you also have to accept the consequences that come with it. If I were to make a law to say, "Oh, we're making this illegal," that would be kind of tough. I don't know if I could do that, because it's to me it's placing like a God stature in a way, you know, to each his own. But how I feel personally, like I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I could not.
I'm going to respect your opinion, but as the only woman on the panel, I definitely have to make sure that we are being very, very clear about this. The Supreme Court is now coming in telling people what they can and cannot do with their bodies and their sexual health. And when we're looking at what Mary Miller said as a victory of white life, that sounds like something you would hear at a KKK rally. It sounds like something a Grand Wizard would say. Now, I think we have the quote from her people who are actually saying that this was an accident. This was a slip up. This was not intentional. Do we have that quote from her representatives? So here's what they're saying that she meant to say. They're saying to suggest that she is somehow not committed to defending all life is disgusting. She has the most pro-life voting record in Congress and is the proud grandmother of 2 beautiful grandchildren with Down syndrome. Now, this doesn't make any sense to me, given the fact that this is talking about Down syndrome and disabilities and not necessarily her addressing her saying white life. Do you believe that this may be something that subliminally came out for her?
I mean, hey, if maybe there was a glitch. Maybe we never really know. Like, let's deal with the obvious here. Like, something that we can really prove. What we can't prove is if she meant that or not. It could easily be narrated as, oh, that's a slip up. I meant to say right instead of white. I've said that before too, reading certain things. We don't know for sure, and I think that's the wrong focus though, because they say this is this giant leap for white life, right? Okay, we're saving the babies. But let's not forget that we're also saving black babies too. Like, we're leaving that black part out of it. Like, this could be a win for black women. You know what I'm saying? A win for our black children. Because I'm not an advocate for abortion. So of course, if they're passing this particular law and it's reducing the amount of abortions or to just end it all, that's a win for me, especially for black women, because we need our black women. We need our black children. So
I hear that. I definitely hear that.
I could care less if she said if this is a victory for white life. It's a victory for black life too, if that's the case.
I mean, I hear that if you are in fact not pro-choice and you are pro-life, but at the same time, you do not want a sitting representative with that type of mentality being on a puppy, because if she's saying that and it's an accident, it probably means she means it in her mind, and it just so happened to slip out. And some of the comments, I'm gonna go to the comments really quick. We have Rashida Guess who said, "No, sorry, she did not make a mistake. She meant that, and I'm not surprised. That's how white people feel."
How do y'all know?
We also shout out to Dawnita Jackson. Thank you so much for checking in. And she says the irresponsibility aspect should be added, but should be added for both men and for women, not just for women. I agree with that 100%, that it is not just women. Men are also out here making these babies.
We're true, but at the same time, let's keep it real. Like, nobody throws in men. They're like, whenever women's back is against the wall with some of this stuff, like, they always want to throw men in there. We know, obviously, it takes 2 to tango, but y'all say it's my body, my choice. It does take 2 to tango, but then it only takes 1 to make the decision. Come on now. Come on, chat line.
But let's just be real. In a lot of these cases where there is choice, most men will leave that up to the woman. They want to take themselves out of the equation completely because they don't want the responsibility of dealing with something like that. Because that's a really big choice that you have to make. And I do also want to harp in on this. this is not a choice that is women are just taking willy-nilly. This is definitely a choice that women have to think about. And I think most women do. Speaking of which, kind of like going back to your comment a little bit, since you do believe in pro-life, and Clarence Thomas, this is another reason why Roe versus Wade, them repealing this, is concerning.
Mm-hmm.
Is this the beginning of a rollback? Clarence Thomas, the most senior judge, has stated that he is going to be looking into other things that the court has, decisions that have been made. So one of the things, stare decisis, which means stand by, which has been decided, he actually said that it's overrated. So a lot of the precedents that we've seen, he's starting to say that those precedents are wrong, and that's something that Mitch McConnell actually did say. Okay. So now this could be a repeal for gay rights and same-sex marriage, and then we're also looking at contraception and whether or not they again will step in because of Griswold, and will they overturn that? I don't know. Do you think that we're going down a slippery slope?
That's kind of tough, because I'm gonna give it to you as raw as possible, because like I try not to be politically correct, so hopefully you guys can decipher this. You know what I mean? I believe that, first, I believe that as women and as men, because I'm taking from the comments too, I do agree with what you're saying. We do have to hold ourselves accountable for the actions that we make, first and foremost. Like, let's forget about this law and stuff like that that's trying to be passed, all right? You make the decision. Women have access to sex. You make the decision on how sex is going to be. You remember back in the day, I think condoms were rampant back in the 90s. You know, we had like little sex education and stuff. It was even in the rap songs, you know. Things were being preached about as far as safe sex, protecting yourself, you know what I'm saying? But now these days, it's like, even within the music and just within commentary, I don't hear anybody talking about having safe sex or just even things to prevent having a child. Like, I don't,
because Republicans didn't want us talking about it. Do you know all the pushback that TLC got for having condoms on their clothes?
Hey, you know, Republican of them, I really try to go as an independent thinker, like just common sense at the end of the day.
And you're
common sense ain't common no more.
Are you a libertarian? I believe.
I'm independent. I don't like them titles. It's if it makes sense on the right, then I go with it. If it makes sense on the left, then I go with it. It's all in what makes common sense. A lot of people just pick sides because, and they may know that something may make common sense, but they want to stay on that side because they're trying to stay loyal to maybe some I ain't gonna say stupidity, but
yeah, let's stay away from that.
Let's stay away from that, because I know people are sensitive out here, you know what I'm saying? But I love y'all. But I try to stay independent if it makes sense. But going back to this particular subject, yes, I am pro-life. Yes, I think that we all should hold ourselves accountable for the actions. We all know the consequences of having sex, unprotected sex. We know the two main things, STD or pregnancy. You know that there is a great chance that you'll get an STD. You know there's a great chance that you will get pregnant when you have unprotected sex. The man knows that too. But I also put most of the responsibility on the woman because they have access to that. They're the ones that can give themselves to a man. Okay. So all of a sudden now you're pregnant and now you don't want the child. But is that fair to the child? That's not fair. A lot of women like to bring up medical reasons, or they want to talk about the R word. And I do adhere to that. But that's a low percentage on a bigger scale. You know, and really to kind of sum this statement up or whatever, I feel like most of the women are using these abortions as a form of birth control, and they don't want to take the responsibility or hold themselves accountable what the real reason is. There's an undertone here that people are not explaining.
Well, I'm not going to say that I agree with you because, you know, we don't agree on anything, but you know, it is what it is. But what I will say is what you're saying makes no sense then, because what they're doing is it's going down a slippery slope of repealing a lot of these things that will give people access to contraception. That is what Griswold was about. So now we're going down a path where they do not want you to get abortion. And I think most women do not use abortion as contraception, which seems to be the narrative out there.
That's not the narrative. That's 60%.
That is not true.
Are you trying to say, go ahead.
No, that's just not, it's not true. Most women are not using this as a form of contraception. But if that is the case, and that is the stance that most conservatives are going on, why are we now talking about going after Griswold? So here's a quote. So from an event in 2013, Clarence Thomas, somebody asked him about whether or not he would keep the rules in place from the court. And he says that it's not enough for him to keep him from going after the other decisions that have been made. So he is looking at these things to repeal them. That does not sound like a group of individuals who makes any sense. How can you say that abortion is not okay, but we want to go back and look at contraception? It makes no sense. At least there we have to agree.
So, okay, let me say it like this. All right, let me say it like this. Are you trying to say that, if they're going to go with this particular law here, you're trying to say that contraceptives shouldn't be available either?
No, it should. It should.
Okay.
They're trying to take that
I do
away.
agree. Lisa, I do agree with you. I agree.
I knew we would get something.
Bring out the condoms. Bring out the condoms. Men, you need to be smart too.
I knew we would get something, but let me go back to some of the comments. We've had some other people check in. Thank you so much for tuning in. Willie Frazier said, he's asking about Mary Miller. Did she vote against babies getting formula or women getting maternity leave? Alfred Elliott is saying, but the white birth rate is low, and he's saying that that's what she meant to say. Just say in. Thank you so much for tuning in. He's saying, she meant it the same way you're in a room full of brown haters. And I don't know. I kind of agree with you. I think she meant it and it came out and people said something about it, but I'm pretty sure that's what she meant, even if it was only in her own mind. Let's just say that. And we have Tyrone who checked in. Thank you so much, Tyrone. He's saying, there are not many who will voluntarily choose safe sex, especially men. I think that's a conversation to be had as well. Rashida, thank you so much, Rashida. And Rashida Guess is saying, this man is going to make me burn my dinner.
I'm sorry.
I'm assuming she's
Don't
talking about
I bet
Jill.
it's good too. I bet it's
And
good.
Janelle Field is saying, dude is so lost, he might need a higher caliber of woman because the women I know do not use abortion as a form of contraception. Me either. Thank you so much. Me. I don't know anyone either that actually does that.
So let me so I had to rebuttal that a little bit. I still think there's a lot of emotional things going on here. So let me give me what I want people to tell me. What would be the main reason for an abortion? Because you're fighting for that so hard. Is it just about control of your body, or is this about abortion? Like, nobody's being real with that situation. We're acting like that women don't get abortions because they're not ready for the baby, or they don't feel like they're suitable for it. Like, they don't hold it up for adoption or anything like that. They just kill them. They kill the child. Yeah, it is your body, your choice, but like, you made the decision to have unprotected sex and now you're pregnant and you're trying to say, I want an abortion. I'm just saying, you're trying to say that's not one of the main reasons. Like, what are the other higher percentage reasons to get an abortion? Because I've been through IVF too.
I will say this, that the majority is because the woman does not want to have a child at that point.
Boom. That's my point.
I will say that, but I will also say that the majority of women are not out here using abortion as contraception because mentally, physically, it is not an easy thing to do.
What I'm saying is they're doing that more for that reason than any other reason, is what I'm saying. Like, all the other reasons are at a low percentage. So even what you just said, your first answer was, I do agree. There are women out there who say, they're doing it because they weren't ready. Well, why didn't you think about that before you had unprotected sex? That's what I'm really talking about. Nobody's admitting that.
I agree that there are some people that can be irresponsible. I think the most people or most women that get abortions are not, but there are some people that can be irresponsible. Mm-hmm. Now, what I will say is this. It is up to a woman in order to make that choice, and it should not be the government's choice to tell me whether or not this is what I can and cannot do with my body. And like I said, agree. This also goes down to this fact as well, that if you start to do this, you start to tell people what they can and cannot do. Again, like I said, when you're looking at these cases that would or potentially could be overturned, you have Griswold versus Connecticut. which basically gave the Constitution of the United States protected the liberty of married couples to buy contraception. So in the government at this point, before that time, could restrict that. And there actually was a law on the books that did just that. So I think that
I'd rather women just say y'all don't like using condoms.
Is it women though? Like, so if
men don't, men don't either. I'm throwing men in there, but like, it's just that it's the emphasis right now is so much on women and my body, my choice. So I'm really trying to be specific to women. I understand.
Here's
for
another
men.
thing. Here's a comment that I'm seeing here. Protection is not 100. It's not 100% proof. Condoms do break.
You are right, but guess what? Going in with bare skin is 100% chance of pregnancy. What odds are you choosing? If you had a choice, commentary, to wear a condom or not, what has a better percentage of pregnancy not being pregnant? A condom or no condom? Common sense.
You're hanging on to the 60%, but do we know how many of those individuals actually use protection?
It's obvious to know who don't use protection when they get pregnant.
It's not though.
That's
it's
obvious.
Not though. But we're getting down a rabbit hole. Let's
Somebody
bring
poke
it back
a hole
in.
in the condom.
We're going down a rabbit hole.
All
So
right.
do you feel like this is actually going to lead to other things, since Clarence Thomas said now they are going to start to look at these other cases and decisions that have been made, and that this does not protect you anymore? Like, if decisions have been made and they're used as precedent, it is not a protection anymore. And now they can go back and look at these other laws and these other things that are on the books. Do you think that this is an opening?
I have to agree and say that there'll be a nice little crack in the door for some things to start, opening up. I do agree with that at the end. I do agree with that. I really do. But also at the same time, I want to hold us as people, the people who have the power of the people. We need to hold ourselves accountable and be responsible for some of these things, though, at the same time. All right, we can't allow the government
responsible for gay marriage, because that's something.
Are you gonna talk about gay marriage?
Yeah, this is what I mean. These are some of the things that are coming down the pipeway. They're going to maybe reversing Griswold versus Connecticut, Lawrence versus Texas, which basically gives gay rights, or it makes it legal to be able to have same-sex partnered sexual encounters. And then Oberfeld versus Hodges, which gives the right for legalized same-sex marriage. Are we walking down a pathway now that they can go back? The Supreme Court is looking at these other precedents.
There's going to be a little crack, but I'm going to tell you that they're not going to touch the LGBTQ. They're not going to mess with that. They're not going to mess with that.
I don't know.
Look how hard though. Look how hard they really tried. Look how hard they've been fighting just to get to where they're at now. You think really they're going to just reverse all that too?
I honestly do. I think that this is something, because Clarence Thomas said it, and he mentioned these by name, that these are some of the precedents that they're going to go back and look into.
It'll be interesting to see. Like, I'm looking forward to see the in this next year or two, like what's going to unfold from this particular situation. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Is this, when this Roe v. Wade, is this a federalized thing, or is it just up to each state? I thought it was up to each state.
This is federal. So if the states
federalized?
Yeah, so this is federal protection. So basically what Roe versus Wade, or what it did, was it gave the protections for it to be legal in all states. So if you had an abortion up until the 24th of June, you would still be protected. Now you are seeing, because it's not federally protected, the states are coming in saying that some states are saying it's okay here in certain circumstances, even in the military. What they're saying is they will still provide abortions for health reasons.
So
that's what it is.
Got you.
So
that
that's
narrows
why
down
you
to
can
one
still
thing for me.
Cross state lines. You can still cross state lines and get an abortion, as of a matter of fact. In some states, they're saying that in Idaho, Mississippi, North Dakota, Wyoming, what they're saying is that it may be hard to find a doctor that actually would perform an abortion. And they're saying that it's best to cross state lines, even though it is still legal there to get an abortion in the case of rape and incest, but it would be hard to find a doctor to do that.
And I will say this, for people that want to debate back and forth, listen, at the end of the day, who you voting for? It all comes down to your vote, all the way down to your state, to your local people. Who'd y'all put in office? You know what I'm saying? It's especially on the state, and we're talking about state and we're talking about locally. Who did y'all put in office? Because this is why we are where we are right now. Who'd you put in
It
office?
is. It is all about your state, but I think sometimes if you are born into, because most people don't move out of the states that they were born into, and if you're born into a state that's a little bit more conservative and you just so happen to be a liberal, you might be in a really, really tight spot.
iPhone 13 on us for every customer. Current, new, everyone. To show the love.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
How about sushi?
I just had sushi for lunch yesterday.
How about tacos?
Automatic emergency braking, one of 6 advanced safety features standard on every 2022 Chevy Equinox. Find new technology. Find new roads. Chevrolet.
All right, folks, welcome back. Let's talk about something that I think people are now starting to really consider to be an idea. We've been, of course, talking about the issue of guns in this country as it relates to mass shootings and shootings in the Black community in particular. But we know that guns are a problem. And one of the big recommendations outside of red flags and background checks, allow more Black people to have guns and watch gun control. Well, you know, you've heard it from my two guests, Hassan Giordano, as well as Davon Love from Leaders of a Beautiful Struggle. Both say the same thing. Well, guess what? We might have another supporter of this idea. Check this out. All right, look like we're going to pull up this. We're going to wait on that. I want to bring in culture crew member, Brother Sinead. Brother Sinead, real quickly, as we pull it up, looking at this idea of Black folks having guns. People are saying if Black folks had guns, we will see some serious gun control. How viable of an idea is that? Oh, check this out. Here it is. Mm-hmm. Check this out. It looks like we got to get some sound on this. All right, let's add some sound to this.
I'd like to say this real quick as a gun owner, that taking those AR-15s off the market, is a no starter. I mean, it's all about the guns, all right? I'd like to say this real quick as a gun owner. Yeah. There are people in this country that genuinely own guns and just do so for the same reason that we all sit up. An AR-15? No, let me tell you. Okay, let me give you a story. There's a man in Connecticut that watched his neighbor have a home invasion and watched their whole family get killed. He built his own AR-15 because Connecticut won't let you buy them, but you can abide by rules that allow you to build them. And then he has one in his house to protect his family because he never wants to see that happen again. He is a Black man. It's odd. Most AR-15 owners are former military, 35 plus and married. So that's all I'm saying is that they're not these crazy people. Here's the thing. Once Black people get guns in this country, the gun laws will change. Trust me.
Boom.
That's what happened with the Black Panther. Black people have that. That's what happened with the Black Panther.
What? Joy Behar? Joy Behar? She's telling that to a black woman?
Well,
Bro, I can't. I'm floored by that one. Joy Behar is talking to a black woman gun owner that wants black people like, and it looked like it just threw the sister way off, man. It looked like she was like, I wasn't expecting that. Joy was serious. Like, what's black? What? Listen, this is what she said. Here's the thing. Once black people get guns in this country, the gun laws will change. Trust me.
Mm-hmm.
We got some people that go, look, I know shit they do. My audience, they everybody talking about owning a gun. What do you make of this very quickly, Sinead? Do? Is this the way to change the laws, gun laws in this country? Black people owning some guns?
Absolutely, but I enjoyed the sample from Joy Behar, but I enjoyed originally when I heard Dave Chappelle say that on one of his Netflix specials, because see, the thing is, it's getting a lot of talk now because it's a white woman, but it's been said a million times. Joy is correct. Joy is correct, just as everybody else has been correct. We absolutely know that because and just putting, because it's about race. Race is what it's all about. Because I bet you, if all them black people were there at January 6th, Rio wouldn't call it a dust up. He would have called it a riot, and we would have called it a massacre, because we know what it is to be black in this country. She's right. And Sonny, they happened to cut her off, but Sonny Holston was saying Black Panthers, because yes, that was the perfect example. That was the case study. I hate when people say prove it. It's been proven. That was the case study.
That was a big case study. That is a big case study. Yep.
But we also, real quick, Faraji, this is the funny thing I love about this country. We love to have discussions of things that we know this stuff. We know that would be the case. We know it. And I would hope, I would wish, I would love for black people to come together and just say, you know what? Let's all go and do it. Just because, even if we're not going to use it, let's just go and, if we really wanted to change and we know that this would change it, let's go do it and prove 2 points at the same time. Hey,
brother. If it's going to lead to some real change, you know what I'm saying? Let black people have some guns in this country. Watch the gun control laws change. There we go. Hey, Joy. Thank you. Sinead can say it. Hassan, Davon can say it. Sisters across the country. It was just the fact that she kind of like G-checked the sister a little bit, like on this issue. And it's like, sis. And the sister looked like she was like, whoa, okay.
But you know, Faraji, that's not new. That's not new. When she checked her, it reminded me about the many white people who believed in the civil rights that Martin was marching for, not when he died, when he was living.
Yeah.
When he died, everybody jumped on. But when he was living, there was a lot of brave white people who jumped on and were trying to convince black people that we got to stand by this. And I'm glad she checked her on national TV. And it's not to be funny, but partially it shows you privilege, because Joy is privileged to take this stance whenever she feels. And this is not to disrespect her, but this is just the reality of the situation. But it also is to put it in perspective that sometimes the enemy that we are fighting looks like us.
I'm gonna leave on that note, Sinead. Thank you so much, brother. Thank you for being so good for the culture, brother Sinead.
It's my pleasure, man. Thank you for having me.
I appreciate you. Talk to you soon, brother. Thank you so much.
Love our new Alexa.
It's a Buick.
Yeah, Alexa.
Buick.
Alexa.
It's a Buick.
It's an Alexa. It's a Buick. It's an Alexa. Coach, that's a Buick. That's an Alexa.
The Buick Enclave with available Alexa built-in.
These are are the only bins that will accommodate larger overboard.
They put 10 in here?
Yeah, and you don't come out till you die. And you eat him, you poop him.
Oh my God.
So what?
How about sushi?
I just had sushi for lunch yesterday.
How about tacos?
Automatic emergency braking, one of 6 advanced safety features standard on every 2022 Chevy Equinox. Find new technology. Find new roads. Chevrolet.
New report that the FBI has officially put out saying that active shooter attacks in 2021 doubled over the recent years. Now, folks, this is coming out as a result of what we saw in just Buffalo just a couple of weeks ago. And now the FBI is saying that these attacks are starting to happen more and more. Violent rampages, as has been reported by the Washington Post, that carried out on active shooters increased significantly in 2021, with 61 such shootings last year. Let me just share with you a little bit of some of the latest findings from the FBI. Check this out here. Check out this quote, folks. In 2021, these 61 attacks occurred on average about every 6 days in the United States. Wow. There were 30 such shootings in both 2018 and 2019. About 1 in 5 of the active shooter attacks in the FBI report was also a mass killing, which is federally defined as a single incident with at least 3 victims. Others killed fewer people, or in some cases, no one at all. In total, 103 people were killed and 140 wounded in the 61 incidents, a tally that did not include any of the shooters. Now, this is coming from the Federal Bureau of Investigations, the FBI, to talk about the severity of this situation. And now we are in 2022, and we're looking at more cases of active shooters attacks, where there might not just be cases of just one active shooter at one place. There might be one active shooter at multiple locations. I want to bring in today's Culture Crew members. Lise Winnie, host of Millennials Anonymous podcast that can be heard on where podcasts are streaming, to be a part of this conversation. And as we answer the question, how concerned should we be? Elise, good to see you as always, sis. How are you this afternoon?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. When we look at this situation about active shooters, this is, we're seeing numbers now, of course, from 2021. Of course, they haven't come out for 2022, but we're seeing that there is a rise in this. How concerned are you that this situation may be getting way out of hand, starting this year and moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at gun violence just in general, especially in the United States, this tends to be a problem. Whereas, what in 2020 was like 45,000 gun deaths. I think in 2021 it was somewhere around there, where we have a problem not just with active shooters, but we have a problem with guns. Now, gun laws are the most difficult thing to get passed. It is something that Americans will always have some pushback and resistance to. And so I think that what we do need to do as a nation to try to at least get on the same page, because I am concerned. It seems like this is something that is happening more frequently. It appears that guns are becoming easier to get, even though that's not necessarily the case, but it appears that way. So we do need to start putting the laws that we do have on the books in force, like the red flag law. There's no way, like I said last week, this racist zealot should have been able to get this gun. Like, there were things that didn't happen that should have been in place. So we need those types of gun laws, sensible gun laws that protect people from, you know, themselves in a sense, so that they don't harm other people. Like we have to make sure that we have something in place in order to protect the citizens of this country.
Yeah, I would totally agree on that, Lisa. I mean, I feel like, you know, the FBI and, you know, some of these like law enforcement agencies, it's interesting because they see these things happening, but I'm not hearing enough in terms of how they're planning to like either stop this completely, how they plan to get to the root of this. And I think that that's interesting. You know, there was the case you brought to my attention, which was the case out of Texas, where there was an active shooter at a school. And you have to ask the question, you know, these folks seem to be getting younger and younger. I'm talking about the perpetrator. I'm talking about the actual active shooter. They seem to be getting like younger and younger. And I'm wondering, is that really, you know, as much as we've been having this gun conversation, but if these active shooters are in middle school, if they're in high school, gun laws is, I mean, obviously they're getting the guns from either their parents or someone they're close to, or just these guns are in their home. But I feel like there's something else missing from this conversation when you have young active shooters. It's not just about guns. It's about this idea that I think that at the end of the day, Lise, the best way to handle a situation is to use the gun, is through violence.
It's gun culture. So in America, we love our guns. That is what we stood for and stand for. And that's one of the things that in this country is true as American pie and racism. We love guns. And so when you look at gun culture and kids are growing up where guns are glorified, and then one of the things that has always scared me as a parent, and this is a conversation that I have with my spouse, who is an avid gun supporter and gun owner, that sometimes I think, especially when it comes to children, they're almost like toys. Like, have you seen these guns that are like, they're pink and they're colorful and they're, you know, I think that we have to really start saying what guns are. It is a weapon. It's not a, which a lot of people, well, it's a tool. No, it is a weapon. A gun was made in order to kill. That's what it's made for. And so when we see this being glorified in, you know, in television, we see people glorify this in music. I think that it brings about, the gun is power, and this is what you do. It's cool to have a gun. You see all the kids on social media with guns. This is something that is impressive. So we do need to change the culture around that. This is a weapon. This is not just a tool. This is also a weapon, and it is not a toy.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. I'm looking at the details, folks, and you know, if you are in Texas, you probably have been hearing about this story throughout the day, where a suspect was taken in custody as an active shooter now check this out, Lisa and folks, at an elementary school.
Yeah.
At an elementary school in Uvalde, Texas. And according to what police has already put out, that suspect is in custody. The school district, Uvalde Consolidated Independent School District, said that the shooter was located at Robb Elementary School and asked people to stay away from the area. Uvalde, Texas is located about 90 minutes west of San Antonio, but at an elementary school. So I don't know, and we don't know just yet whether the suspect is a student, whether they're a staff member, whether they're a parent or community member. We just don't know. But I mean, look, I grew up in the 80s.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? In the 80s, when you went to elementary school, that was like, when you just went to school in general, that was one of the safest places outside of your home and outside of like a church or a mosque or a faith institution. Like, those are the big three places that as a child you felt the safest, right? And to see that situation has devolved into this space now where, I mean, it just seems unfathomable somebody would bring a gun to an elementary school. Like, what would piss off someone so bad that they would have to bring start shooting at an elementary school?
The baby.
So I think there's a conversation, as much to your point about, you know, access and gun laws. there's also this conversation that we have to have in this country, and like you mentioned, the gun culture, like around mental health and how we see violence in this country. Because right now, at least, violence seems to be the only option instead of the last option.
I agree, and I think that we don't understand the communication of it, and we have been programmed that violence means power. It means strength. So if you are violent, it means that you are the strong one in the situation, and that if you communicate or back down, that somehow makes you weak. So yes, that's part of it. But I think that when you look at mental health, like even under the Trump administration, there were a couple of policies of mental health that would prevent people who have mental illness from being able to access guns. That was something that was repealed, but then of course under Biden, he went and put that back in place. But we do need to strengthen those things because everyone who does these things does not have mental illness. So we do need to make sure that there are, like what happened in Buffalo. Of course, it hasn't necessarily come out. Not they said he had a mental illness, but it appeared this is more just racism, and he just did not like Black people more so than a mental illness, since he had plenty of time to think about what he was doing, and he did it anyway. So we do need to put things in place. There are a lot of red flag laws and things like that, and they don't always work. So we have them on the books, but we do need to strengthen them so that they actually protect the people that they're supposed to.
Yeah.
But again, because this is a gun issue, this is going to be an uphill battle. And when you're seeing all of these elections taking place, I don't know how, when you're looking at what the Democrats are trying to do, especially with the elevation of crime right now, how to handle this issue where you can make sure that people don't feel like you are threatening their guns and you're not overly using the police at the same time. Like, how do you manage this issue? Which honestly, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. I don't know. I mean, I think culturally we can have some conversations. Like if we're seeing a lot of these active shooter attacks taking place at schools, I think there is some credence to teaching and educating young people about gun violence, gun safety, and most importantly, learning how to deal with your emotions and dealing with your feelings. I mean, it's interesting. I remember growing up, and I feel like bullying has always been a part of the school culture in some way, shape, or form. I was bullied, and I know people are bullied. But it never occurred to me that, that in order to get my bully back, I wanted to shoot and kill him. You know what I mean? It's just never occurred to me. But what I think that nowadays, like it has to be a much different conversation. I mean, I think children are so overexposed to violence. Children are exposed to adult situations so much that they start to think like, quote unquote, like adults in some cases. And they lose the ability to see themselves as children. And I may be completely wrong, Lise, but I just find it to be very disturbing when children take on the burden of making adult decisions and trying to deal with a situation.
Agree, but I think it also, not even just normalizing it on television, but even us as society. I mean, we do have to prepare our children for something like this to happen, but they have active shooter drills. This is something that they do every single year, and it's almost like it's expected. It's normal, and we normalize it in the way where it's like, no, this is not normal, and this shouldn't happen. You said you grew up in the 80s. I grew up in the 90s. I'm a 90s kid.
I'm so sorry to hear that, Lise.
I'm an 80s baby, but a 90s kid. But I grew up in the generation of Columbine. So to me and the people that are my age, we've been dealing with stuff like this for a while. And so it almost seems like, oh, this is something that is bound to happen at some point. So we do need to get to the root of the cause. And I think you brought up a good point that mental illness or mental health is a key portion of that. And that we shouldn't be trying to eliminate and neutralize the problem of a person that we have. And that's the first thing that we go to. So you're absolutely right. In America, we do need to sit down and have a serious heart-to-heart with us. Why do we all need a gun? Let's start there.
Ask that. You know what? I think that's one of those questions. You said your husband is a gun enthusiast, a gun advocate. It would be interesting to hear why that is the case, right? Like I don't know. Like I get it, but I don't get it. You know what I mean? Because we already know that if you have a firearm in a household, there's a great responsibility attached to it, especially when you have children.
Yeah.
So it is an interesting thing. And I know that what I've heard from other gun owners is, you know, you always kind of expect the unexpected, you know what I mean? Expect for the worst. And it's like, yeah. But I don't know.
But most people shoot themselves.
I don't know what the line is. Like, are you expecting like a Walking Dead apocalypse? I don't know. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not trying to make fun of people. I'm just saying I don't understand. Like, you know, when you're talking about like those high-powered rifles and AR-15s and semi-automatic weapons, and it's like that's not just a gun. You know what I mean? You plan to go to war. You know what I mean? So I'm like, I don't know. Let me go to some of my comments because folks are checking in, and folks should continue to post your comments on our Facebook and on our YouTube page. Let me kick it off with Christopher Perkins. Christopher, you said, Faraji, these white supremacists have sleeper cells all over the USA. You're right. You know, my idea, Christopher, is to crack down. You know, you go to these governors on these states and you tell them to start cracking down on these white supremacist spaces. I don't think they will do it, but the fact is, if you want to show people that you're serious about shutting down some of the operations of these organizations. But yeah, I'm not doubting that, Christopher. Mike V. Mike said, but an active shooter is not the same as a terrorist attack. What happened in Buffalo was clear and concise. Well, it depends. At least you can jump in any time. I think it can be a terrorist situation like what we see in here in Texas. That's a terrorist style because you are imposing upon the safety of innocent people. Like, if you're one and making a statement, it's hard to figure out like, oh, okay, no, that's not a terrorist attack. That's an active shooter attack.
Right.
You know, I think they both contain elements of terror. I mean, who's going to shoot up an elementary school with children? That's terrifying.
It truly is, but the difference really between the two is like the basis of it and why you're doing it. So I would say this. With the active shooter, the reason why we were talking about in the school in Texas, and at the time when they first announced in Buffalo that it was an active shooter, because they had a person who was actively shooting. So they didn't know whether or not this was a terrorist attack yet, because they didn't know the motive and they hadn't released that to us of who exactly, how many people it was. It was an internal thing. We didn't know what it was. So when they're using active shooter, most of the time when there's someone who's actively shooting, they start with that, and then it will go to, okay, this was a terrorist attack, or it will evolve. So right now, when we're talking about the active shooter in the school, again, we don't know. I think now it has subsided. You said they got him, right? Because I know this was happening.
Yeah, this is a suspect in custody.
Okay, so now it's not an active shooter situation.
No,
so
it's not an active shooter situation. But yeah, I mean, I get it. Like the definition of both active shooter versus terrorist is it's not dissimilar, of course, in the eyes of the government, but you know, I think for the sake of this conversation, they're both terrifying events.
Yes,
they're both terrifying events. So for the sake of this conversation, it's like I don't know. It's still a problematic. Let me go back to these comments and try to get, you know, make sure we hear as many people as possible. I want to go to Damon, my man, Damon Blissett. Damon said, ghost guns. We had a high school student use it at a school back in March. This was a black guy, a senior. Big issue. It goes back to the whole accessibility and accountability of guns. Ghost guns, you know, they can't be traced. They're just kind of out there. Some of them are made. I've seen those, that conversation play out. But I think, again, that goes to a situation and unfortunately, it's like Damon saying, this person is a black student. You know, it's not a situation where we can just actively say, oh, that's a white guy. You know, violence is so pervasive in this country, Elise. And I, you know, to your point, violence is so pervasive in this country. The culture of violence is so strong in this country. It's literally affecting everyone.
Agreed.
You know, we just talked about a couple of weeks ago in California, an Asian man, you know what I mean, just shooting up a church. You know what I mean? So you can't say, oh, you know, back in the day, we did have that stereotype saying, oh, yes, oh, it must be a white man. I'll never forget when the DC sniper.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And everybody was like, oh, you're white van. That's a white man. That's what a white man would do. And then when we found out it was not just one black man, it was two. And then the one of them had a Muhammad as last name. I remember watching TV and it's like, oh, God. This is not good for us. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
I mean, I'm serious. I was just sitting there like, John Muhammad, Lee Malvo. Oh, God. Like, this is not good. This is not
no,
good.
we all been there where we like, oh, no. But
you know, it's one thing to have two black guys. Another thing to have a black guy named Muhammad who was at the center of it. And you're like, and then it was just all crazy. It's like he was a part of the Nation of Islam, and you're like, okay, here we go. You know what I'm saying? It was a very interesting and very kind of like concerning period. Go ahead.
Yeah, and what I will say is that when looking at that, no, we shouldn't automatically assume it. You should not do that, and you're absolutely correct, because I think the definition of what they're kind of like hazy.
Yeah,
is what they consider to be a mass shooting and what's not considered to be a mass shooting, depending on the organization. But the majority, it seems like in this country, like 53, like it's a weird number. I have to find the exact statistic. Like most of them just so happen to be Caucasian males. Men tend to create or do stuff like this a lot more often than women, and they tend to be Caucasian. So when we're looking at that, when you look at it in, I guess, the traditional sense, it seems like it appears to be more of them. But if we look at it in a broader sense of what is a mass shooting, is a drive-by considered a mass shooting, then it kind of changes the dynamics now, doesn't it?
Right. Because the mass shooting as defined by the government is 3 or more people that have been killed. So if you're talking drive-by, then that could certainly qualify as a mass shooting. Wow. Ooh. Let me go to get to some more folks really quickly. Brother King Lee, who checked in, he said, my last year of high school was 1978 in DeKalb County, Georgia. And at that school, some kids had knives, but I don't recall any stabbings. Yeah, different time. That's what we're talking about, essentially, a different time. Let's go to Mike V. Mike checked in and said, look, guns were the instruments of toxic masculinity and Anglo-Saxon hegemony of African and indigenous people. All of such can be traced back to European colonialism. Yeah, I think so. I think you're right on point for that. But that does not take away. Here's the thing, Mike. You and I both know it, brother. That does not take away from the fact that we, as Black people, have now kind of inherited that same mindset, right? And it's hard, Lise. I don't know if we can even have the conversation, like you just mentioned, drive-by shootings. I don't know how to have those conversations about mass shootings in the Black community, right? Because no, we don't traditionally see Black children or a Black active shooter go into a place and start shooting up the place. But we do hear about drive-bys. We do hear about shootings throughout the Black community. We know that Black on Black violence is a very real, is a very serious situation. So we do hear about that. So I don't know if the conversation around mass shootings, active shooters and terroristic shootings, I don't know how they should be had in our community.
That's a great question, because when this all kind of started to unfold, I did start to see that narrative being played out where a lot of Black people were upset that they were saying stuff like, people were coming out and say, well, this is a mass shooting thing, that we have a problem, and they were throwing drive-by shootings and things like that in the mix. And they were saying that it sounded like they didn't want it to just be a white guy thing. Because again, white men do this majority of the time. When you look at what has happened over the statistics of history, they tend to be white males. So I know a lot of African American or Black people, we were a little bit like, okay, wait, don't throw us all in there. But to defend a drive-by shooting is insane a little bit. So
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to say that that's not considered a mass shooting, because it still causes the same level of damage to somebody's family and in household and all the innocent people that are shot. So I think that we do need to sit down and have that conversation in our community. But I think you're right. I don't know if we're ready to openly have that type of conversation, or I don't think we're ready to have that yet. I don't know.
I mean, I want us to have that conversation. We need to have conversations about gun violence in the Black community, right? Excuse me. But we also, we need to have it in a sense that if this continues to happen, and we can't have this conversation right now just for the sake of time,
right?
If we continue to see Black people shooting and killing other Black people in mass, the way we've been seeing it in cities across this country, like Baltimore and in other places, then how do you think the government will start to prosecute these cases? Right. So little Donnell, 16, 17 years old, he goes by and he starts shooting 3 or 4 people. The government or some lawyers might say, well, you know what? Because of the pain that we have been experiencing in the Black community, we might be like, something has to be done. So we're telling our local attorney, state's attorney, hey, y'all need to do something. Y'all need to do something. And then the government responds with, okay, we'll do something. We'll start to say that any young Black person who commits that type of shooting is going to be, their shooting is going to be considered to be either an active shooter or a terrorist attack, or they're going to be seen as a mass shooter. Now the ball is dropped where Lil Donnell, he's not getting juvenile years.
Right.
He's getting grown man years as a mass shooter.
Yeah.
And that may turn the tide, and that's going to ruffle some Black folks' feathers, because we're going to look at it and say, no, the government is looking at your 16, 17-year-old as a grown-ass man or a grown-ass woman.
Right.
And they're going to start to prosecute them as a terrorist, as a domestic terrorist. You know what I mean? Like, it can go in a very, very crazy space.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree with that. And I think you're absolutely right. This is something that we do need to be open with, but it is something that we do need to be careful with, because over criminalization of our youth is something that is an issue. So we do need to be very careful with this, but we do need to have the conversation and make sure that people that are doing these things are being held accountable, and we're not creating a wall of protection that stops them from actually being held accountable for the terrorizing of our own communities, which is unfortunately happening like all over the country. And we want to make sure that we are doing the right thing. In America, we have a gun problem, and we need to be able to say that out loud. No matter the race, we have a gun problem.
Absolutely. I just saw one of the messages from Tiana. She made the point. She said in Chicago, the media in Chicago are calling shootings with multiple victims mass shootings. Now, I'm sure that when they're reporting that, while they're reporting about Black people, Black communities, but it might be seen. And this is the I think the very thin line, Lise, that we as a community, as a people, will have to figure out. The very thin line is, if we're pushing for the government to intervene, if we're pushing for law enforcement to intervene in stopping the violence, instead of us getting out to save our children, our daughters and sons, and our nieces and nephews and grandchildren, and the government comes in, then the government has the power to take their efforts, redefine it, recategorize it, and make it say, you know what? You're a domestic terrorist. You're a mass shooter. Just like we're seeing now with a whole bunch of hip hop artists, you know what? Under the RICO law, guess what? You're operating a gang. Therefore, we're going to give you Fed time.
Yeah.
Yep. You're part of this set. Fed time.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Your career is over. That's and we might be like, no, don't do that. But that's what happens when you don't handle your problems in house. And you run to the government, you run to law enforcement to try to deal with the situation. If we don't deal with it, and we don't deal with it very, very quickly, I can see it going into a space. Now, that's just me. That's just little Faraji Muhammad, just kind of seeing how things go if we don't deal with it. Because enough is going to be enough.
Right.
I think so many of us are so frustrated with living in, violent communities and feeling like our own children and our own people are terrorizing. I'm talking about the older folks. I think a lot of older folks are at their wits' end and saying, look, whatever you got to do with these young people, you do with these young people. But you might be serving them young people up on a silver platter to a system that's not going to treat them like young people.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate the choice that we have to make, but whose lives are better or worth more than the next? And that's something that we also have to keep in mind, that if these individuals in your community are going to stop you from being able to have the pursuit of happiness, where is the line between that? So that's just something that we do have to keep in mind. And it's not an easy decision or choice to make or to fix, if I'm being totally honest. We can talk about it, but it's not an easy choice.
Absolutely.
How about sushi?
I just had sushi for lunch yesterday.
How about tacos?
Automatic emergency braking, one of 6 advanced safety features standard on every 2022 Chevy Equinox. Find new technology. Find new roads. Chevrolet.
We're all impacted by the culture, whether we know it or not. From politics to music and entertainment, it's a huge part of our lives, and we're going to talk about it every day right here on The Culture with me, Faraji Muhammad, only on the Black Star Network.
Are the only bins that will accommodate larger overboard.
They put 10 in here?
Yeah, and you don't come out till you die. And you eat here, you eat hoop in.
Oh my God.
I wanted to switch gears because as we're discussing all of these things that are happening, they can kind of weigh on your mind. Well, today I wanted to highlight and have a conversation about Hood Huggers International. Now, the Hood Huggers International is a group of Black folks that are changing the game about Black life and culture and social justice issues in the mountains. Let me just share with you what they're all about, folks. Keenan, if we could post that quote. Here's what they're about. Hood Huggers is a partner organization of Asheville Creative Arts, that's Asheville, North Carolina, that serves as a vehicle for community-engaged social enterprise work, environmental work, and art in the Asheville, North Carolina area. Asheville is a city in western North Carolina's Blue Ridge Mountains, a province of the Upper Appalachian Mountain Range known for its vibrant art scene, historic architecture, and African-American contribution. Folks, it is Hood Huggers International that is moving to bring Black folks into mountain life. But they're doing it in such a way that they are continuing the great tradition that was started to revive what they call Affrilachia. Are y'all familiar with this? Have you ever, when I saw this, I was like, oh, you know what I mean? Like, it was just one of those things like, Black people in the mountains? Yes, Affrilachia, folks. And this was a terminology that was coined by a Kentucky-based writer and poet, Mr. Frank X. Walker, that focuses on the cultural contributions of Black artists. Now, here to talk to us a little bit more about this is Culture Crew member Rashad Staton, who is a nonprofit leader, an educator, and advocate / activist. Rashad, thank you so much, brother. Always a pleasure to talk to you. How are you today?
Always. I'm blessed and favored, brother. Thank you for asking. Hope the same is for you.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Rashad, Affrilachia, excuse me. Affrilachia. The idea that Black people are expanding, we're working in these spaces like the mountains of Appalachia, right? But have you ever heard of Hood Huggers International?
Never, brother, never. And I just love the framing of the term Affrilachia, how they merge African with the Appalachian. Man, I love Black people. Our innovation, our culture is always gonna stitch us in the places that we exist in. Like, I didn't even know, out of my own pure ignorance, that Black folks lived in the Appalachian Mountains, but I'm not surprised either in the fact that they have created a community, have created an international network and organization to support themselves and to keep their culture enriched and thriving, man. It just says a lot about who we are in our natural state of being, and us taking pride in our heritage, our culture, and our representation.
So for me, Rashad, the reason that I wanted to just, talk a little bit about this is because my hope is that we can start to have conversations about how to expand our work, right? We have been conditioned to believe that once it comes to outside of the urban centers, that we are not needed anymore. That push, that social justice push, is not needed anymore. And one of the things that about Hood Huggers International is they're saying, no, we do need a space because we have environmental issues, we have social justice issues, especially in some of these smaller rural towns where Black people are congregating. Now Black people are small, we're moving out of the big cities like New York, Chicago, Dallas. I mean, in some cases, like some of us are saying, you know what, I need a simpler life. I need to move to the mountains. Mm-hmm. But once you make that move to the mountains, then you got to deal with a whole new set of issues that stems from white supremacy and racism and environmental challenges. So I wanted to at least bring this to the forefront of people's minds that, to see Black folks in this new space is something both very empowering and very promising.
Yeah, I agree, man. And I'm looking at the comment that we got from one of the viewers here that talks about we always existed in the mountains, and the fact that those are tapping into our ancestry and our even Indian ancestry and how we were always interconnected, and how I speak of, like, I'm deaf into history, and it spoke of like Nat Turner after the rebellion, seeking refuge in the Indian territories and not knowing how to differentiate us from those Aboriginal and Indian persons, right? And it just speaks to us always existing. And like you said, us knowing our land, us knowing our people, and us knowing our community, that we are not singular in fact that we only exist within these urban populace, but we exist in other rural communities as well. And what we see in these rural communities is a stronghold on community togetherness, in a space where it's not just dealing with the social issues that show up in our disheartenment of how we interact with humanity, but how we interact with nature, right? And these folks understanding environmental consciousness and understanding how to sustain themselves using the nature around them just shows us, if we tap into our original state of being, that we can always thrive and we can always use our nature to make sure that we are sustainable and that we can live a fruitful livelihood. So I think a lot of what we might be seeing from HUD hookers can easily translate back into urban communities, as some of their programming around education, arts, around history, and around expression. We see this in very smaller subsidies in our urban populations, but how do we take this unique approach of this smaller community that have found a way to create international footprints? I think that's something that can allow us to scale out with the minimalist distractions that they may get versus those that are already residing in urban populations. Because, like you just said, we are watching another migration of Black and brown folks across this country, going back to rural areas, going back and moving outside of just the common grids and things that we have often been perceived to think that's only where we reside at, right? We watch this differentiation of these de jure segregation policies that move us from the cities out into the nearby counties, but we're also now populating these rural areas, and we're going back down south rather than these northern, upper northern southern states like Maryland is, but we're going further down south to get that. And we're seeing this even in the rural communities that are surrounding, you want to say Houston, Texas, or surrounding Charlotte, North Carolina, and surrounding these areas outside of the Atlanta that we all seek pride in. But we see these others existing in these communities too. And I'm just willing and curious of what we can learn from them that we can sustain ourselves in these urban populations.
Absolutely. I want to bring some comments in, folks. Post your comments. Let's get to them. Shalinda said Black folks were already in the mountains. So let's post Shalinda's comment real quick and get her thoughts on this. And folks, y'all keep it coming. Black folks were already in the mountains. Truth be told, the Indians that hid in the mountains were my Black ancestors. Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. I love that. Lana checked in and said, look, I'm from a small town. I think this is Arkansas. Am I not in AR? That's Arkansas, correct? If I'm not mistaken. Is that Arkansas? I believe that is. Y'all gotta forgive me. I know, letters and stuff or initials for the states. I'm gonna say Arkansas because she said the Midwest. I've been in the Midwest since college. I just bought 6 acres and trying to buy 7 more. I want to go home. The air smells different. Trust me. Lana said, yep, that is Arkansas. All right, Lana, thank you so much. No, you know what? Lana, let me tell you something. You know it and I know it. You understand the power and the value of land. So if you got 6 acres, that you got a nice piece of land there, right there. And then you're trying to buy 7 more? Come on, sis. You're going to have to grow some food.
All power to you.
She's going to have to grow some food for us. Lana, you're going to have to grow some food. She want to go home. The air smells different. Trust me. And you know what, Rashad, it's interesting because like our generation, well, you're younger than me, but I think we're still like, I'm on the tail end of the generation. But the fact is, like our generation, those your age, a little bit older and leading up to my age, we don't know about this part of our culture, about being a part of the land, about living in the mountains, about that. I mean, I think there's a segment of young people of the next generation who are into that. But we've been so urbanized, and I don't even know if that's a word. Is that a word?
I don't know, but you can get coined for
everything.
Get coined for
the idea of us going out, living off the land, tilling the land, cultivating it, going on a farm. I mean, generally those things happen when you get into your 40s. Like I'm in that space now. Like, oh, that'd be dope to kind of have a farm. You know what I mean? That'd be
simplify
dope to
life a little bit.
That I can actually eat. That would be dope. Like I would want my children to eat what's coming from the ground. You know what I mean? They don't have to worry about the processes of stuff. Like how do we get our people, especially the next generation, how do we get them to be excited about just getting back to this natural place?
Yeah, I think one is it's a natural like rise of consciousness and awareness that we're starting to see, right?
Yeah.
And the fact that we understood that we eventually moved from this space where, slavery enforced us and enslaved us to the point that we saw agriculture and sustaining and cultivating land as oppressed labor. But even as we became emancipated, we then found out clearly in our history, and if we read deeper beside what's given to us in the educational system, that we gain a sense of our own worth and value and our own dependency and autonomy. That when now we're raising consciousness and vibrations in our community, we're starting to be very self-aware that we should go back to what has allowed us to, to thrive independently on our own and not be dependent on societal norms or the urbanization that provided us once at a time further opportunities and employabilities. But the reality is these mills and these factories that was once thriving in our country has now been displaced and has all been sent out into other countries. And America is not one of those places that have a strong hold on agricultural development. So it's that space of now, if our country doesn't have the business framework, we as homes and houses and communities must attain to that opportunity so that we can ourselves continue to live, continue to thrive, and we can actually remedy a lot of the social indicators and determinants that's holding us back from progressing, right? If we can continue to do urban farming and community farming, like you said, it removes the toxins, the pesticides, and all of the ills that is made when it's being produced by these larger corporations that want to see monetary gain rather than helpful gains in us as our humanity and our biological makeup. So I agree with the sister. I'm pleased to see that she is purchasing land and looking forward to purchasing more, right? I think that's powerful, and it says a lot about our sovereignty as a people. And if we continue with that direction, I think we'll have a stronghold on even how we move in more in the strength as far as political affiliations and things of that sort, and even education, right? The Brothers of the Nation speaks very highly on farming and cultivating out lands and going into it. And you start to see these younger brothers in the nation under the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan that speaks to his teachings and his messaging that tells them to go back and go and purchase land. That is one way of us gaining our independence and our sovereignty and everything else. So I love the idea of this, and I love that it's given us another avenue to freedom and liberation.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt, bro. Let's go back to the chat. Let me see what Janae had to say. Janae always trying to be funny, Rashad. Always trying to crack jokes. Look at Janae. Let's bring up Janae's comment, please, Keenan. As we're talking about Hood Huggers International. Folks, if you haven't heard of the group, y'all should check them out. They're talking about reviving Affrilachia. Janae said, I am not ready to live off the grid. Plus it's cold.
I take some moments off the grid.
I understand though, sis. I totally understand. I think that's why you have an organization and like Hood Huggers and other organizations out there to show us that it can be done. That it can be done. And I think that it helps at least to open up our minds. Not even if you don't jump fully into the lifestyle, but at least you know that maybe I can try this, every couple of weekends during the year or something. You're going up to the mountains with some professionals that can help you to understand the beauty. I mean, just to expand, because here's the place I'm at as well, Rashad. Like when we talk about self-care, sometimes people say, "Oh, self-care is going out and buying going to the store or going to those things are nice." But self-care, when I think of self-care, I'm thinking about you becoming one with nature. I'm thinking about you, putting the phone down, walking away from the social media, and just getting into a place where you can breathe, you can take in new oxygen. You can stand on the top of a mountain or looking over the ridge where you can see the sunset. You can, just letting your body, to Lana's point, stuff starts to smell different when you're at the top of a mountain. You can breathe and you can let the energy of the trees, the energy from the sun, the energy from nature to feed you. So, Janae, I hope you don't have to go in there when it's cold, sis. You can just go out there when it's like a nice warm day. I don't know what city you in, But I would highly encourage, I mean, all your major cities, there are places, especially like on the East Coast. And then, of course, on the West Coast, you got mountains all over the place. But take the time to do that level of self-care, not just getting like a massage, or those things are nice, trust and believe, a mani and a pedi, I got you. But that self-care, being one with nature, I think would change your life. Ryan, now this is Ryan. I want to, let's take a look at Ryan's comment. I think this is absolutely excellent. Ryan said, the further you get away from cities, the more freedom you have. I want us to think about this, Rashad. The further that we get away from cities, the more freedom that we have.
Yeah, I would say
remember
like
having conversations doing the work that we do, brother, talking and empowering young people, right?
Mhm.
And it always blows my mind when I come across Black youth that have never ventured outside of their neighborhood, or they never ventured outside of their city to go like camping. I would work with programs that would take young people out camping. And I'm talking about 13, 14, 15-year-olds saying, I never been camping.
Yep. I had that same lived experience until I was, had that opportunity awarded to me, and it changes your life. Even with the work that we do, and we know this is passion and service-oriented work, my best way and my preference to reconnect and recharge is to get off the grid. A lot of times finding these places to go hiking, to go walking, to go trailing, to go camping, and just to go into these secluded places where you connect, and you become earthly people, in which we naturally are. We connect back to nature. We silence the distractions and the noises. We minimalize other people's projections and the falsehood of what society should define as success. But it allows you to listen to your own thoughts a little bit more, to listen to nature, to watch God show up in miraculous ways, and you're more likely to hear your higher self and your conscious self when you are have intentionally removed yourself from these things that we see as normal everyday things, which is not oftentimes for our betterment. So I always encourage others, and I've even started to take my son on these excursions, and even encourage my parents and especially like my dad to just get off the grid, go in there. And as I've started to climb, this definitive space of accessibility and leadership and power and influence, I've learned that a lot of those that we would identify as thought leaders, visible public figures, they actually use their gains to get away. And a lot of times they do that. But the reality is, when they're doing that, they're not going back to the communities that they're serving often come from to say, hey, this is my way of recharging. This is my way of rejuvenating. And we need to make that a common way of self-care. Like you said, a lot of times it doesn't have to be these things that we're often used to. Sometimes, and at the times when we go and go off grid, it is least costly. It doesn't cost much besides travel. If you have the accessibility to travel, then you should have the accessibility to disconnect. So when you do connect back, you are back to your full and whole self.
Let me
so
tell
I
you
love
something,
this idea,
brother. Let me tell you something. That's the stuff that we're talking about. Karen, let's bring up Karen's comment, Keenan, because I think she's on point as well. Karen M checked in and said, "That's right, Faraji. That is self-care, being in nature, and if we can begin to be self-sustaining, that will truly be self-care." Amen, Karen. Amen. Self-care, you in touch with nature, and then self-sustaining. That's what I'm talking about. Look, folks, look. And I think sometimes, Rashad, I know I'm getting older because certain stuff is starting to excite me now that it didn't excite me when I was younger, right? You know what I mean? Like this whole idea of being one with nature, this whole idea of, and I'm getting in this space, folks, and I'm sure some of you are in the same space. Like, we've carried so much pain. We've carried so much pain from our personal experiences. We're working to try to shed the expectations, the unhealthy view that others have placed on us and that we have accepted. we've carried so much pain of being black in America, because that leaves a physical and psychological, that has a physical and psychological toll. Like what we saw in Buffalo, that will have a physical and psychological toll on not just East Buffalo, but for all black people, because we're connected. Like, as much as we might think that we're not, our DNA is connected. Like, that's how we able to feel for those brothers and sisters that lost their lives in that tragedy, because it's something that's literally in us, our DNA. It's a part of our makeup, right? So we're connected. So we carry so much pain and so much hurt and so much tragedy and so much trauma that now, to become one with nature, to become one with yourself, to not live in a schizophrenic mindset. All of these things become more, to me, like they become more attractive to me. I'm realizing, Rashad, and you might be at this place too, bro. I'm realizing, like, the things that America, that this country and our culture has said is important, is not important. Money is not important. We know that it can create change, it can do some things but in the big scheme of things, folks, you know that if you had a choice between money and peace of mind, what you going to choose? I'm choosing that peace of mind.
Same here. Same here.
You know what I mean? Like, we carry so much in our years. That's why young people looking old people looking older, depending on your lifestyle, depending on what you allow coming into your mindset, your head. What kind of information you feeding on, what are you consuming during the day? I mean, this is we're talking about a holistic, healthy living. But I'm at a place where I'm saying, look, man, I'm trying to shed all that trauma, all that pain, all that hurt. I'm trying to keep that in the past. As I get into my years, I don't want to pass that mess on to my children.
I
just don't want to do it, bro. Look, my wife and I, we take our children out to nature. Go ahead, run around, play in the grass. You know what I mean? Like, just enjoy, breathe. Because as much as we like to believe that we're living, when you're in these cities, when you're going through the grind each and every day, the simple things of just taking a breath, taking the air in and letting it out, it can make all the difference in the world.
Yes, sir.
So I love that point, Karen, about being self-sustaining and that's the self-sustainment, though, starts with the temple, the body. It starts with our minds. It starts with our hearts. Because at this point, man, I'm ready to just let certain things go. I'm not holding on to this. I'm not holding on to no grudges. You know what I'm saying? Too old for that shit, bro.
Yeah.
I'm just too old for it. You know what I mean? Holding on to some old pain. You probably got, and I'm just saying, and folks, y'all probably got family members that want to talk about stuff that happened 25 years ago. They still wrapped up in that pain. You got stuff that you want to hold on to, past trauma. Man, look, let's do ourselves a favor and learn how to process that, work through that, get back to ourselves. Because this is, when I heard about hood huggers, I was like, man, that's an outward journey of an inward quest.
I like how you put that.
You living in the mountains, you going up in the mountains, but you really are going up into the upper echelon of your thinking to find some level of clarity. So that way you can be able to think clear, to make better decisions. I'm not trying to hold on to that, man. I'm not trying to hold on to this mess. Like, this country is in such a state of mind that we have to all do our best to keep our sanity intact. Because as everything else is falling down around us, and it may seem like that, the walls are closing in, the ceiling is falling, we got to make the conscious and intentional choice, Rashad, that is not going to be our reality. That can't be our reality. We've gone through too much. we made of the best stuff on earth. Like you remember Snapple when they always said made of the best stuff on earth. They talking about black people and a couple of tea, some tea, but but we got all of this inside of us that if we just cleared the garbage, we just take a few breaths in. If we just really worked on that self-care, we will transcend the pain. We will transcend all of the madness that's around us. I'm sorry, brother. I just had to share that. What's your take, man?
No, what you gained from it was what I gained from it. I was just watching this higher level conversations just last night, and they was talking about exactly this of like what hood huggers is personifying for me and how it resonates with me is exactly what you was alluding to. This idea of holistic health, right? As it being a universal alignment to one inner self and one alignment to nature. And the fact that they have tapped onto this and have sustained this will show that this community itself will continue to thrive, will continue to exist, and will continue to navigate whatever comes their way because they are so in tune with self, they're so in tune with nature, and they're so in tune with the universal community around them that I applaud them for this, and I applaud you for speaking this up, because those that are a viewership and those of an audience that reside within an urban populous city or town, let's say, we should now look forward to other ways to recharge, recenter, and like you said, reduce the noise of distraction and suppression and get to a sense of what really matters. And if we take our self-care as our first priority, our community grows healthy. And I think Hood Huggers is doing exactly that, and they should be applauded, and we should learn from each other.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Folks, we're going to take a quick pause, but let me just share this with you. This group, Hood Huggers, Rebuilding Affrilachia, you can go to a website, and if you're in Asheville, North Carolina, look at that. They got the colors up there, folks. I wanted to show y'all. If you're in Asheville, North Carolina, they will actually give you what they call a hood tour. Take you right up in the mountains, Rashad. Look at that, man. I got to get them on the show.
I was about to say that. Whoever thought to correlate the name Hood to be in the wilderness and to be in nature, and it just shows us reclaiming narratives and us living in our everyday story.
Yeah,
this is beautiful.
So if y'all live in Asheville, North Carolina, definitely check them out. But Hood Huggers International, beautiful, beautiful group of black folks doing some great things.
iPhone 13 on us for every customer. Current, new, everyone. To show the love.
How about sushi?
I just had sushi for lunch yesterday.
How about tacos?
Automatic emergency braking, one of 6 advanced safety features standard on every 2022 Chevy Equinox. Find new technology. Find new roads. Chevrolet.